Good evening, everyone. Welcome to tonight's emergency stream. I was sitting watching TV late last night and saw that the new regulations for the Canada Disability Benefit finally dropped. I hadn't noticed them before. I was thinking, oh wow, I should just do a live stream, but it was like midnight, so a little late. So we're going to go through it tonight. I'm hoping that I can answer most of your questions. A lot of the questions we had before about this benefit are now answered, but there are still a few areas where we still don't know really how things will go. But we will continue to get more information in the next few months. But I am happy to say that I should be able to answer most of your questions tonight that you have about this benefit. So if you have not been on one of these streams before, how it works is I'll talk a bit about this benefit, but I'm hoping that you will have questions that I can answer. Just put your answers in the comments if you're on Facebook or on YouTube, and I can see them. I can post your comments up on the screen, and then I can kind of go through them one at a time. Hopefully, like I say, we'll get through this, and the regulations are a bit much to read. They're not complicated or that long, but it's the classic legal situation where you have regulations that refer to other statutes. You go to those other statutes in a section, and it refers to other sections. So it did take me quite a while this evening just trying to piece it all together, and I had to spend more time reading the Income Tax Act than I really care to, but it's what you have to do to try to understand this. I'm still not 100% certain on all aspects of it. It will take someone maybe who is a little more knowledgeable of the Income Tax Act and how things work with some of the definitions of income to really nail this down, but hopefully we'll be able to get most of it figured out. Okay, so let's dive into this. So just as a summary before we look, I'm going to take you through the regulation itself, and we'll also look at the summary that the government's provided. But let's just go what we know now type of thing. So the new regulations, these are the things that I can now talk to you about. They talk about the eligibility criteria are now clear, and we're going to go through those in a minute. The benefit amount is known. That's been known for a while. It's $200 a month for, $200 a month, $2,400 a year max. That hasn't changed. The application process is described, but it is not in place yet. However, it will be in place shortly, and we'll have more information. I'll do another one of these live streams once we get the application process settled out. We know the income thresholds now. This was open to a lot of speculation, and it's pretty much what we expected it to be. It really mirrors the old age income supplement kind of threshold. So we're going to go through those thresholds, and I can explain them. This is what I spent the most time trying to figure out, is these income thresholds and trying to figure out what they're going to count as income. We know that there's going to be an annual inflation adjustment, so it's $200 a month in this year, but next year it will go up at the rate of inflation. We know when the program's going to start. We know that there will be retroactive benefits, which is great. However, they will only go back to July of this year. But in the future, if you were to apply late, you would be able to get a retroactive benefit, which is very good, because people will not automatically know how to apply for this right away. And last but not least, we do know how the appeal process will work. We have a pretty good idea of it. It's not completely laid out, but we know which tribunal will be handling it, and we know when the tax court might be involved. All right, let's do this. I'm going to share my screen. I'm still learning this software to do these live streams, so bear with me. And just put in the chat if things are not looking correct or if you're not seeing it. So I'm going to attempt to put on the screen the summary. Let me find it right here. All right. Hopefully you're seeing that okay. So this is a summary of the regulations. Let's go through this first. The regulations are quite difficult to read. This is a little more condensed, but I did go back to the regulations because some of the things in here, this is just a summary, so you're not 100% sure. You'd like to go to the source always. So let's take a peek at this. And again, to put your questions. Oh, I got the wrong banner going here. Just one second. There you go. If you have a question for me, just put it in your comments and put a Q in front of it, and I will get to it. So let's start with this. This is a summary. Okay, we don't really need to go through this first part too much, but we do know that the Canada Disability Benefit Act, it did get passed last year, and it came into force. What it was waiting on was the regulations and kind of the go date, which we knew had to happen before this summer. But we now know that these regulations will come into effect on May 15th. So that tells me that is when the program launches, although they haven't explicitly said that. But if the regulations are in force by May 15th, and I anticipate that is when the official launch of this program will be. Okay, so the eligibility criteria is kind of spread over a couple pages here. So first of all, to be eligible, you must be a resident of Canada, have been approved for the disability tax credit. So that's a big one. So you must be a resident of Canada, approved for the disability tax credit, be between the ages of 18 and 64. Here's a big one: have filed an income tax return with CRA for the previous tax year. So for anyone, this is the first thing we should be looking at. So for anyone hoping to get this benefit this year, you have to, one, be approved for the disability tax credit, and two, you must have filed an income tax return for 2024. So if you haven't done that already, the things you can do ahead of time now would be to make sure that you get your income tax filed for last year, if you haven't already done so. So those are the criteria. It's not that complicated. Basically, it's for working age people. There's nothing in here that you had to have worked, but they do require you to file an income tax. Now, this will be an issue because a lot of people don't file an income tax. You don't have to file an income tax return if you don't have any income to report. However, if you want to have a benefit of this program, you will have to file income taxes, even if they're just straight zeros down the board or there's no taxable income. You have to file the income tax return. Now, something else that I kind of popped out to me when I was looking at the regulations was, if you are married or in a common law relationship, your spouse also has to file their tax return for 2024 and going forward every year that you're going to apply for this benefit. So that is something that's quite important, that both you and your spouse have to file. If you have a spouse, you have to file for that income tax return. There are some exceptions to the spouse. They've made some exceptions. Basically, if you're separated or if your spouse has been designated violent under the family violence acts and these kinds of things. So basically, they don't want to get people in a situation where you got a violent ex-spouse who won't file taxes and now you can't get your benefit. So they will make some exceptions, but they're quite rare. And you should expect that both you and your spouse have to file your income taxes in order to be assessed for this program. They're doing that because there is an income threshold to be able to get this benefit, and how they figure out the income threshold is through looking at your tax returns. Okay, so that's how they're going to figure it out. This part here just talks about the waivers. Incarcerated persons can't get the benefit. All right, if you're incarcerated if you're in prison for more than 2 years, you're not eligible for it. Now, applying for it, the regulations do allow Service Canada to. So another thing is, Service Canada, as we expected, will be the agency administering this benefit. They can have their own application process. We don't know what that is. They have not said what it's going to be. The website says that they will reveal it in the coming months. It could be. I don't expect it to be that detailed, because you already have to prove the disability component through getting approved for the disability tax credit. So the application for this, I expect to be quite a bit simpler. It's maybe you just have to sign some forms allowing them to look at your taxes or submit tax stuff. I don't know. It's not going to be in depth. You probably would just have to confirm you're a Canadian resident, that you're single or married or whatever, have a common law spouse. But I think it will just be a simpler process to do the application. The hard part probably is going to be getting approved. Well, it is. The hard part here is going to be getting approved for the disability tax credit. That's going to be the kind of gatekeeping of this benefit. That's what will keep people out, basically, whether or not they can get approved for that benefit. Now, the benefit amount we know is for the first benefit year. So the way this benefit will work is they call it a benefit period. So the first benefit period is from July 2025 until June 2026. During that benefit period, the benefit will be $200 a month. And that's it. I don't know why I was pausing there, but it'll be $200 a month. The following year after that, it will increase by inflation, and they would assess it again. So they assess you kind of on a year-to-year basis, from what I can tell. And the income thresholds on whether you can get this benefit are going to be determined whether you are single or have a spouse. That can be either married or common law, as defined by Revenue Canada. So the threshold for a single person is $23,000. If you have income, and put a little asterisk by the income, because we're going to talk about that, because income is very important how that's defined, but because some things are income and some things are not. But in a nutshell, if you have an income of less than $23,000, you will get the full $200 a month, $2,400 a year. Now, you will see here that it says, I don't know if you can see maybe you can't see that, my little pointer here, but it says the benefit will be reduced by 20 cents for every dollar of income that is above. So if you're single, every dollar of income that you have above $2,300 will reduce your benefit by 20 cents. So I know it's late, and I don't know if there's any mathematicians in here, but I did figure out the math. So basically it's $12,000 so think of it this way. I tried to do a little graph, but I couldn't get it together in time. Up to $2,300 in income for a single person, you get the whole thing. From 23, so 20, it's actually $22,999. $2,300. Sorry, $2,301 to what would it be? It would be $3,500. So between $2,300 and $3,500, you would still get some portion of the benefit. It would just be reducing by 20 cents for every dollar. So the income where you would no longer, as a single person, once your income hits $35,000, you would not get any of this benefit. Okay. Now, for a person in a common law relationship or married, your combined income, if your combined income is $32,500 or less, you would get the full benefit. If your combined income is between $32,500 and $44,500, sorry, because it's $12,000. So, but in that range, you would continue to get a benefit, but it would gradually reduce as you get closer to $44,500. Then, if you and your spouse's combined income is over $44,500, then you would not get any benefit. Okay, so that's basically it. It does seem to be focused only on a spouse. So it doesn't look at household income per se, like everybody in the household. So if you lived in a household with like 10 other people and they're all contributing, like it doesn't look at that. It just looks at your income and your spouse's income, which is good. All right. I'll just look at a few more things and I'll start taking some questions. There is this was interesting to me. There was a working income exception. So what they will allow basically is if you have some working income it would have to be from like doing work, like some type of work, self-employment or working somewhere. You can earn up to $10,000 and it will not count as income towards your benefit. So in other words, where this says $2,300, really that could be, they're not going to count the first $10,000 of your income if you're working income. they will exempt it. That's great. That does allow people, I think that's a good part of this, is does allow people to have, who are capable of some small amount of work, to be able to continue to do it and not be punished. And if you, yeah, and there's also one here if you're in a common law. So I've talked about adjusting for inflation. Changes in marital status have to be reported immediately. Start of benefits. So it says here the benefit will be payable to a person starting the month after the month of the application. So they've set this up exactly like CPP disability. They count everything from the date of your application. And I looked at the regulations and they define your application date as the date they receive it. So everything will be calculated off of that. So we'll get to it in a second here. You can get retroactive benefits, but it will be indexed to the date of your application, not the date that you could have originally qualified. So for instance, if I'd applied and they got my application this month, the benefit becomes payable the following month after the month of my application, subject to any retroactive payment that might be due. Okay, so it says here the earliest a person can be eligible for the benefit is June 2025. Therefore, the month after that is July. So the first month where you could actually get a payment would be July 2025. Then what I do like, another thing that I like, is the retroactive period is up to 24 months. That's not going to help anyone on this call really, or on the video here, because the earliest you can go back is no one can get payments before July 2025. However, like in the future, as long as you make an application within 2 years, you can get the full retroactive pay going back 2 years. But if you're past 24 months, that's where you would start losing out on money that you could have gotten. So just keep that in mind. And there's some other things here that is not that interesting. Death of the beneficiary. They're talking about representatives if you have like family members or legal representatives helping you out. Now, reconsideration, it follows, if you're familiar with how CPP disability works or EI claims, it follows the same process where you get an initial decision. Then if you disagree with it, you ask for a reconsideration. Then if the reconsideration comes back not in your favor, you can apply to the tribunal. One good thing here is they're giving a lot more time. They're giving 180 days to file a reconsideration, whereas like for CPP disability, it's 90 days. So they're given double the amount of time for people to act on these things. I think they recognize that it's not always easy for someone with a disability to just get on it right away and move at the speed of light to get everything done. 90 days seems like a long time, but that can go by quite quickly. So they're given 180 days, which is great. Now, as I anticipated, I thought that they would use the Social Security Tribunal, because why not? Why start a whole new tribunal? It wouldn't make any sense. The Social Security Tribunal is already set up. It's very well run. There's very good judges there, and that's what they're going to use. So it does confirm here that they are going to use the Social Security Tribunal. It does. There's a weird part here that says that they will refer, if your appeal has to do with income, they will refer it to the Tax Court of Canada. So I guess what that means is, well, I know exactly what that means. So if there's disputes over your income, whether this is going to be income that's counted or not, it will go to the tax court to make those determinations, which makes sense. You don't want to have this tax law stuff is complicated, and you don't want to have the Social Security Tribunal having to learn all these tax law intricacies when really it's a tax law decision if certain income is income or not, because it relates to your tax return. So it's interesting that they've done it this way. They're going to, so it'll be two tribunals. It will be the Social Security Tribunal and the Tax Court of Canada, depending on what the issues are. But what I think how it's going to work is you start every appeal at the Social Security Tribunal for just simplicity and consistency, and then they will refer it off to the Tax Court of Canada if need be. They have a whole section here on penalties and things like that. That's to do with they don't want people basically scamming the system, because it is dependent. The amount you get is going to be dependent on you reporting income, you reporting whether you're in a relationship or not. So like there could be situations where you're not reporting that you have a spouse. You and your spouse, it does happen. People will live together, but both report themselves as single because you get more tax credits, HST returns and all these things. That kind of thing can get you in a lot of trouble here. There's fines and things set up if you get caught in that kind of a situation. All right. Let's look at some questions. This is the actual regulation. Before we get into that, I'll take a look at some questions here and see what people are saying. So let's see here. Is there an income threshold for your household? I think I answered that. No, it's not for the household. What they're going to look at is you and your spouse, if you have one. They won't go beyond that, from what I can tell. They're not looking at like if there's children in your income, bringing in income. If you've got a grandma in the basement who has her pension, like they're not looking at all that. They're just looking at you and your spouse. So an application will be required and this will not be automatic. Yeah, I think so. I think there will be an application required. I had kind of thought before that maybe like, because you're in their system. If you're already approved for the disability tax credit, they already know you're in there. But I guess they still need you to sign off on certain things, and they will want people to register and need you to sign like authorization forms and all these. So it makes sense that there'll be some type of application process. I don't think it's going to be onerous at all. The hard part is going to be your application to the disability tax credit. Okay. My LTD insurance is non-taxable and is not mentioned on income tax. Will they consider that? Okay, perfect. This is the perfect question because this leads us right into the next part here. Income is going to be very, very important because if you know anything, if you've been around disability benefits, you know you can always get screwed over very easily by definitions of things. And let's take a look here. So let me find this section. I'm just going to take this off the screen for a sec. Let's go find the part on income here. This is where I spent like an hour just reading and going over things. This is the formula for the benefits and things. And this is why it gets complicated. Let me find it here. Yeah. So there are two things. I think it's at the bottom. They give the definitions. Just bear with me, folks. Where is it? Oh, here it is right here. Okay. So this benefit is concerned with something called adjusted income. And this is where I tell you, like, when you try to read these regulations, it's like you don't learn anything. It says, so they're focused on your adjusted income. So the thing that we would need to know, I think it was Henri, the thing we would need to know is your LTD insurance, would it be included as part of adjusted income? That is the question. Adjusted income, it's defined here as section 122.6 of the Income Tax Act. That is a section of the Income Tax Act that has been around a long time, and it's used for calculating people's eligibility for things like the child tax credit and things like that. So it's a well-known entity, let's put it that way. I am not super familiar with it, and I did try to brush up on it quickly here before this live stream, but this is an area that people will be able to give you an answer. From what I could tell, I did some cheat notes here on going through trying to figure out what income is included in adjusted income and what is not. And what is clear is that, for example, with long-term disability, what I can tell is that taxable long-term disability income will probably be adjusted income, whereas it's possible that non-taxable LTD income will not be. But I cannot guarantee you on that. Because adjusted income does include some types of income that are not taxable. But again, adjusted income is a concept that has been around for quite a while, and I am going to have to do more research on it and maybe even talk to a tax lawyer to figure this out. But from my initial looking at this, I think there's a possibility that if you have a non-taxable LTD, it may not be included in adjusted income, but I don't want to guarantee you on that. For example, though, CPP disability, from what I can tell, is included as adjustable income because it's taxable income. Things like ODSP or any provincial disability is not generally included as adjusted income under this section 122.6. I could take you, I didn't even want to, I could bring up section 1.226 of the Tax Act and it would get us absolutely nowhere because it is so difficult to understand it. It's very hard to read the Tax Act. It's not straightforward. Like, you can't just go to this section and see a list of things. It is all convoluted. It refers back to things and this and that. Like, it is very, very dense and difficult to get through. So it is an area that I'm going to come back on and try to clarify this for people. But CPP disability, I believe, will be counted as, well, as it stands, like under that act, CPP disability, I believe, is counted. But if you notice here, I don't know if you can see my pointer here, but it says adjusted income means the portion of the beneficiary's adjusted income as defined by that section of the act that is not a benefit. So I don't know how this is going to be interpreted, this part here that says that is not a benefit. So this could mean that something that is considered a benefit would not be considered adjusted income, even if some benefits are adjusted income under section 122. Do you see what I'm saying? There's exceptions to the exceptions here. So, but I don't know what they mean by is not a benefit, right? They may define benefit very narrowly. I have no idea, honestly. I have an idea, but I don't want to steer people the wrong way. So adjusted income is it's meant to capture like your real income with some exceptions. So I made a list of things that are adjusted income. CPP disability, I believe, would be included as adjusted income, employment income, rental income, net business income, investment income, pension income, support payments. So like child support and spousal support. Lottery winnings, believe it or not, trust. If you're lucky enough to be a trust fund person and you have trust income, then that would be. RRSP contributions so if you lowered your income because you bought RRSPs, they would back that amount back in to calculate what your adjusted income was, right? So if you bought $5,000 of RRSPs to lower your taxable income, they would still count your income, including the $5,000 in RRSPs. There's some other eligible deductions that you can deduct from your taxable income. So adjusted income is not your taxable income. It is your taxable income with some other things added back in that may not be quote unquote taxable income. That's why I'm not 100% sure on the long-term disability, but there could be an exception here where non-taxable LTD is not included as adjusted income, but this is something a tax lawyer would need to tell us, or a lawyer like me who has more time to research it more thoroughly. Because I guarantee I just didn't have time to dig into the income tax. There are income tax decisions from the income tax court. What I need to do is just research and look at the income tax decisions on whether long-term disability is considered adjusted income per that section of the act. Ooh, need a little drink here. So here we go. So if both myself and my daughter have the disability tax credit and I made $11,000 from CPP, but my spouse earned $50,000 net, am I ineligible for the CDP? Yeah, the Canada Disability Benefit. So your and your spouse's income would be $61,000. I think you would be that would be too high for the benefit. But we're in the early stages here, so take everything I say with a grain of salt. But from what we saw, the maximum income was, what was it, 44,000? Yeah. But I will say this, it's possible because of this, see this wording up at the top here? It's possible that CPP disability will not be considered part of the adjusted income, even if it is normally done. So they might be making an exception here. So if your CPP is not included, well, if it's not included, yeah, you're still over. You're still over, even without your income. I guess what you'd have to look at, it would have to see what your husband's adjustable income is. If it's 50,000, it might actually be higher. If you're saying it's net, they might be looking at the gross income actually, not the net after taxes. But that's something else I need to clarify. Okay. Why not respond to all potential clients? I sent you 2 emails, 2024. Neither were responded to. Maybe seems off topic, but my questions could be related to your topic today. Not sure what this person means. Sometimes people, I will say that, so maybe this person says they emailed me. I get a lot of emails that I don't even see because they get filtered out by people. I get thousands of emails, maybe not thousands. I get thousands a week. I get hundreds a day. So I can't review every email, and I'm not able to respond to everyone who emails me. So a lot of people who may email me with a question or with information, I will forward it to our support team that we have and have them reach out to people and get information. I know I just am so overwhelmed with work and things. I can't respond to everyone who emails me, unfortunately. Just can't do it. Not trying to ignore people or anything like that. But the reason I started doing these kind of live streams is to make myself available more to answer questions and things. So, I apologize if you did email me a couple times, but you could ask the questions here and I'd be able to answer them. Or you could go through our support. You could contact our support team and go through that process to get answers. ODSP. Yes, ODSP. From what I can tell, ODSP is not included as adjusted income. So it would not count towards your 23. If you're single, you can earn up to 23,000. So it would not count towards that, which makes sense. Okay. Anybody have any other questions? Let's take a peek here. I'll just see if there's anything else that jumps out at me. The working income thing was, so this is the actual regulation, I believe, that I'm looking at here now. Let me just go back up to the top. Yeah, this is the actual regulation that came out last night or yesterday. And you can see the eligibility again. So 18 DTC eligible. You have to be a Canadian resident. Benefit. Oh, okay. All right. So benefit is defined. Benefit means Canada Disability Benefit payable under this act. So let's go back down to the income again. Where was it? Right here. Means portion of the beneficiary's adjustable income as defined in this section of the Income Tax Act and is not a benefit. So what I would now think that this means, because we've seen that they've defined benefit up above, that this word benefit just means that the income you get from the income you would have got the year before from, yeah, this is what it means. So if you're getting this year after year, when you're doing your taxes, this will probably show up on your taxes. But what they're saying is that the benefits you've gotten from this program in the past will not count towards your adjusted income. That's what that means. So unfortunately, that is probably what that means. Yeah. So we'll have to get a legal opinion on whether non-taxable LTD is included in adjustable income. I fear that it might be, but from what I could tell, it isn't. But I'm not 100% on that. All right. Let's keep peeking here. Okay, let's go back to the top and go through this thing. This is the actual regulation that's kind of hard to read. So this is all just yada, yada, yada stuff here. It's important to know that this comes into effect. So this becomes the law on May 15th. That's why I think that's when the program is going to go launch. So we saw now benefit. Okay, so we know now what benefit means down below. Cohabitating spouse. Okay, we know that. So payment period. Again, this program is set up that it seems like you get approved for a benefit period, like year to year. They're not like assessing it every month. And it runs from July 1st to the next year, every year. That's what it'll be. There's all the eligibility. So the big thing here is for people who are on the call that want to know what you have to do. You need to apply for the disability tax credit. That's what DTC stands for. And that process can take a while. So there's nothing stopping you from starting that process right now. Go online, Google disability tax credit form. There is a form you can print off, take it to your doctor, or if you're seeing a physiotherapist or a psychologist, you can have them fill it out too, and get that form in as fast as possible. So what could happen for people is that's the gatekeeping. So you will need to get approved for the disability tax credit. So you will apply to it with Revenue Canada. If they deny it, there are appeals you can do, and the appeals go right up to the Tax Court of Canada. We only represent people who make it to the Tax Court of Canada. We don't represent people in applying for the disability tax credit, doing the kind of appeals with Revenue Canada, objections they're called. We will represent people if they have to go to a Tax Court of Canada hearing. But that is the process you would have to take. Once you get approved for the disability tax credit, well, then all these other things will have to kick in. If you apply late, let's say you're not smart enough to be on this call and you didn't know anything about this benefit, and in 3 years you realize, holy man, I could have had this benefit. Well, if you apply late, they will look at the date of your application, and they will then look back, and up to 24 months, they can go back. If you can prove that whatever date that you met all of these criteria will be the date that your benefits could start the next month. So the main one here is going to be when you're approved for the disability tax credit, because all these other things are kind of they're not going to change. Your age is what it is. Your residency is what it is for most people. And if you're not in jail, then you're doing well. So, and you filed an income tax return. Okay, so those are the things. So the things that might hold you up here is the big one's going to be getting approved for the disability tax credit. The second one is going to be getting income taxes filed. So you won't become eligible for the benefit until you have the income tax returns in. And if you're applying in the past, holy moly, do you have to submit 2 years of income taxes? Probably. I guess it's not that big a deal. Yeah. I would expect that if they're going to approve you retroactively, you're going to have to get your income taxes filed for those years. So if you haven't filed income taxes for certain years, you can always refile for whatever years, right? Just because you didn't do it at the time, you can still go file them. That's going to be things that people need to do. Okay. Let's take a look here. Some of these things are just not that important. The waivers, they can just make exceptions for things. You are going to have to put evidence of age and identity. So again, that is probably what the application process will be, making sure that you are who you say you are and proving that you are also approved for the disability tax credit. So what I see is the application form being somewhat of an authorization form, allowing, because Service Canada and Revenue Canada are two separate agencies. So what I would see is there's an application form where you're going to sign off that they can verify your probably based on your social insurance number. They're going to verify that you are approved for the disability tax credit. They're going to verify your taxes and all that kind of stuff. This may be stuff that they can direct verify with Revenue Canada. And that's probably part of what the application is you signing off on authorizing them to do this type of stuff. This part here, the timing, I've already talked about that. An application can be made before or after you become eligible. So before you become eligible. So I guess what this means is you can get your application in anticipating that your taxes are going to you're filing your taxes and that your taxes will be done. You're in the process of doing it. You can get everything else in, and then they're going to wait on getting the tax return done. Or if you're waiting on your decision for the DTC, you could start this process. In theory, you could start this process before you have the DTC, the disability tax credit decision. Okay. Here's the formulas for calculating the benefit. I started programming these out in Excel, and then I just said, what are you doing, dude? Just no, we don't need to do that. So I did not finish doing that. But there are the formulas there but it's basically what I said. So the formulas are essentially, it's $12,000 extra. If you take 2%, if you lose 20 cents on every dollar, that's basically $12,000. So that's kind of how I came up with that number. That's why we know if you're single, between 2,300 and what did I say, 23,000 and 35,000 is when you could still get some benefit, although it'll keep getting less and less. What else we got in here? Adjusted income, working income. The working income part is great. Oh, we got some more questions here. Oh, there's someone giving me a shout out. Yeah, I do appreciate that. 2 webinars a day it is unheard of. I won't do it every day. I'm going to be hard pressed to make sure I do the webinar every day. Probably will have to take some days off because I travel, but I'm going to try to do it on the road. I've set it up. I chose a setup that I should be able to do on the road. So we're going to try to keep this thing going. But it just, in reference to the person that I said was just frustrated, people do get frustrated. I'm definitely not perfect. In fact, I have clients who are probably saying, I wish he would have emailed me back, because I emailed him early in the week. So it is juggling to do this kind of work. And you really have to be well organized because it's hard to stay on top of everything. Here's another one, a bit related. As this is required for the benefit, can you short form outline the benefits if the disability tax credit? I have not applied yet. Can you short form? Okay. So the disability tax credit, just let me see here. Just bear with me here. I'm going to try to do something. I'm going to try to share my screen. I've never done that yet. Let's see if this works. And maybe just once I do this, let me know in the comments if it's actually working, because I've never shared a screen yet. So let's try this. There. Now I can't see my main screen, but can you guys let me know if you're able to see that? It should be showing you that it should say the disability tax credit on the screen. So this is where you'd go to learn about the disability tax credit. Hopefully you guys are seeing it. This is where you'd learn about the disability tax credit and who is eligible. You'd want to click on this. This will tell you who can be eligible for the disability tax credit. It says here, to be eligible, a medical practitioner must certify that you have a severe and prolonged impairment in one of the categories or significant limitations in 2 or more categories, or you receive therapy to support a vital function. So that's so really what it means is you have to have a really severe disability in one of these areas that are listed down below here, these ones here, walking, mental functions, all this stuff, or you can have a less serious, significant limitation in 2 of these. So it's kind of like if you're affected in 2 of these areas, 2 of them added together means it's as serious as like a serious one in one of the areas. So this is what you're looking at. You have to have a marked restriction. What that means is you're unable to do the activity or it takes you 3 times longer in any of these areas. So you have to have a marked restriction in walking, mental functions, dressing, feeding, only in one of these. Or you can have a significant limitation in 2 of them. So instead of just having something in walking, if you had a significant limitation in 2 of these, that would be enough to qualify you for the disability tax credit. Oh, can't see the screen. Oh no. I thought for sure you'd be able to see it. All right, let me try something else here. Bear with me. I'll get this figured out. It's hard to test this stuff out because you have to be live to do it. So a lot of the testing of this stuff out I have to kind of do on the fly here. All right, let's try this. Let's try this. I'm going to stop sharing and we're going to try something else. All right. Just bear with me here. It's just uploading. Okay. So this is just I just took a print off of the screen. So this is what I was talking about. If you guys weren't able to see it as I was talking, this talks about, you can just Google disability tax credit and go to the government's website on it. And it will talk about, if you click on eligibility, it will take you through it. So what I was just saying a second ago is you have to have a marked restriction in one of these areas: walking, mental function, stress. You can see it has nothing to do with work. It doesn't talk about work at all. It's focused on these activities of daily living. And a marked restriction means that you are unable to do the activity or it takes 3 times longer. If you were on the website, you could click into each of these and it gives more specific descriptions. Okay. Is it something that needs to be applied for every year, or once approved, it will be automatic? That is a good question, Barry. I think it is probably, you do not have to apply every year. In fact, maybe it says it in there, actually. Let's go back here and look. It's a very good question. I doubt you have to apply every year. That just seems like it's a lot of work and a lot of administration. I think what they've said is, like, you have to notify them of changes in status. So what they would check is, they would check your income every year. So I don't know if they're going to have a way to do that automatically, but they would have to know your income every year to know if it changed. So your taxes, they'd have to. So I assume once you're approved, they would check your tax returns. What might happen is you might get an annual form in the mail or on email or something where you have to just check off the boxes, like you're still single or you're still married or whatever. But they're going to know from your taxes whether or not your income has changed. So everything else is really not going to change. The only real variable here is going to be your relationship status and your income. And I think those are 2 things they would know. They would know those things through your taxes, because if you're filing your taxes as single, then you're single. If you're filing your taxes as common law or married, then that would be the case too. So I think that's what you're going to see. I'm just trying to look. Does it say in here at all? Yeah. I guess they haven't really laid out the application process. So maybe this is something they're going to clarify once they come out with the application information. Yeah, so you answered it yourself, Barry. Assuming you have an indefinite disability tax credit and do your taxes every year, I think that you're going to be clear sailing if that's the case. But usually DTC is an indefinite. They usually give a 10-year horizon on it, but maybe sometimes it is indefinite. I don't know if I've ever seen an indefinite one. I've seen it go like 10 years at a time, then they reassess. But it's possible they will do indefinite depending on certain medical conditions and age. DTC is good for 10 years. Yeah, that's what I thought. But I think Barry's just making the point, like just assuming your DTC is approved, for years into the future, probably this thing will just be on autopilot. I think that is probably the case. Okay. All right. Is there anything else? Let's go back and look at this regulation again. There's all kinds of stuff in here. Let's go back near the top here. So we've gone through some of this. We've looked at, these are the formulas. We're not going to go figure those out. The only reason to look at those formulas is it does talk about, like, it defines working income, and then adjusted income is the key thing. So if you want to do your own deep dive on this, just try to understand how that section of the, what was it? Section, I have it written down here. Section, oh, maybe I didn't write it down. I think it was 122.6 of the Income Tax Act. Learn as much as you can about that section, and that will answer your questions on whether X income is going to be included in your income or not for the purposes of this benefit. Where was it? Am I blind here? Where is it? I thought I saw it. Anyway, there it is there. 122.6 of the Income Tax Act. That's what we need to understand. And to understand that, where you would look is if you go to Canly, which is a freely available legal search engine, and just go in there and limit yourself to looking at income tax court cases and just search for section 22.6 and the name of the type of income that you have, and just see if there's, you might be able to search up and find court cases on whether that they have included that type of income or not. So, for example, is long-term disability income from insurance, is that included as adjusted income under this section? It says here, if you get $20 or less, they just send it all out to you. $20 or less a month, they'll just send it to you as a lump sum payment rather than sending it every month. That's what tells me that they're doing this year by year. All right, what's some of this other stuff here? Talks about payments being suspended. Says they can make presumptions of death if you just stop communicating with them. To stop benefits. Appeals. Yeah, we talked about appeals. Social Security Tribunal. Okay, they do talk about minister's decision. Making a request for extension of time. That must be to appeal a minister's decision. Then there's appeals to the Social Security Tribunal. Yeah, so it is the Social Security Tribunal. You can also Google that if you're not familiar with that tribunal. They're very accessible in terms of their documents and explaining what they do, but they have a form where you would file an appeal with them. That's not that difficult to fill out the form. Once you file an appeal with them and they accept it, then there's a process in place to get you from the point of where you file it to a court hearing with the tribunal, the Social Security Tribunal. Here's the part of reference to court. So they will basically, you will start off at the Social Security Tribunal, and they may refer you to the Tax Court of Canada. So the tax court would take over your case if the key issue in your case is whether, like, for example, if you're appealing, trying to say that your non-taxable long-term disability income should not be included as part of your income, and then the dispute of over that would be resolved by the Tax Court of Canada. Okay. So they do, once they notify the tax court, it looks like they appoint a judge to hear your reference. Interesting. So it seems like, yeah, this is like a, normally to go to the tax court, you have to file certain documents, and this looks like that you just get around that, and they'll have a special system set up for things that are referred over from the Social Security Tribunal. That would probably make things easier. Yeah, so and it says here that they'll use the informal procedure. So the Tax Court of Canada, they basically have two levels. They've got the informal procedure level, and then they got the formal procedure level. The informal level is, most of the work I've ever done with the Tax Court of Canada has been at the informal level. It's much easier. The stakes are a lot lower. It's the level that's typically used for disability tax credit appeals. It's the one that you would definitely want to use, because you don't have to end up paying people's legal costs if you lose, which is often the biggest danger in these types of cases. Like, you don't have to, if you lose your case, you don't have to pay the government's legal costs, whereas you would have to do that if you lose at the if you were in the formal procedural level. The problem with the informal procedures is just it's limited monetarily to a certain level of money, but that's usually going to be fine for the type of thing that you're dealing with this type of case. All right, what else we got here? Yeah, no costs may be awarded. So that means you can't, if you hired a lawyer to do your case before the tax court, you couldn't get your legal fees reimbursed, unfortunately. This other stuff is just not really that interesting here. Penalties, they've got some pretty serious penalties in here, so they are kind of gearing up to make sure people don't scam the system. And overpayments. So overpayments might happen if you, for example, say you get married halfway through the year and you're being paid based on or you start a common law relationship sometime during the year and you're being paid as a single person, but really you should be, so it could impact it. That'll be something. That's why if you're receiving this benefit and as soon as you cross over into a common law relationship, and that'll be something that would be determined by Revenue Canada when that happened, then the moment that happens, you could be no longer entitled to this benefit. So that's why you would want to be notifying them right away, so you're not stuck having to pay them back for money that they figure out later on. There will be people that get caught up in this, either intentionally or unintentionally. All right, let's see what else we have here. RDSP payments are included as adjusted income. Yeah. Interesting. So like what you can do is take part of your income and pay it into a registered disability savings plan, which I recommend you do if you can qualify for that. It's similar to an RRSP, but it lowers your taxable income. But what Christina's saying is that it will be back into figure out what your adjusted income is. If approved, will LTD able to claw back the amount? Well, that is the $1 million question, isn't it? That is the $1 million question. So the short answer is probably not, but the long answer is we don't know. We don't know. During the process to approve the Canada Disability Benefit, there was a last minute push by the Conservatives, if you can believe that or not. The Conservatives were pushing to include a conservative senator was pushing to get an exception, to get a clarification added to the law, to the act, when this was going through Parliament. The conservative senator was trying to get it clarified to say that insurance companies would not be able to deduct this, so that take away any doubt. And the government did not allow that to go through. So, I don't want to speculate on why, but that is exactly what happened. So the government decided they did not want to have that explicitly in there. If that is because of lobbying from the insurance industry or what, I'm not 100% sure. They had some reasons. They said that it could be unconstitutional. There's all these things, but that seems a bit of BS to me. So let's just say it's vague, and it's not. There's nothing saying that insurance companies, let's put it this way, there's nothing saying that insurance companies cannot offset this. They had given submissions as part of the stakeholder groups, and they had said in their submissions that they wouldn't deduct it. But, maybe that's their intention now, but maybe in the years to come, they'll change that. But my expectation is, based on everything we've heard, that they will not offset this. But we'll have to see. Would have been better to have it written in there. I guess if I need to say, like, well, why would the government? Maybe the government didn't want to get this thing. Well, it doesn't make any sense, because they could have easily added it in. They had all the votes. They could have passed it. I don't know if they were worried that it would result in challenges from the insurance industry and they didn't want to be tied up in court. Maybe that's it. I don't know. If the Liberals wanted that in there, they could have had it in there. It was from what I understand, a single conservative. It was being pushed by a single conservative senator. And then the ruling party that was in control of the House said no. So they didn't get it in. If someone has any other information on that, you can let me know. That's my understanding of it. Would it have to be specified explicitly in the LTD insurance policy? Normally that is true. Like, so what Many is talking about is, in long-term disability policies, they're paying you your disability benefit through an insurance policy. They have a list of things in their policy that says, whatever we're paying you, we get to reduce it by the money you're getting from here. And they list things out. Now, it is true that they can only deduct things that are in that list, but a lot of these policies are cleverly written, and it might say something like any payment from the government or something like that. Like so it doesn't have to be explicitly written if it is already captured by a category that's there. And that's what I would be concerned about. Because it's usually it does specifically mention CPP disability. So it could be a situation where some insurance policies have a broader category of government payment that could capture this payment, or maybe it doesn't, and then the policy wouldn't be able to. I think it's something you'd have to look at policy by policy. But what I'd be more worried about is these policies get renewed, especially the group ones. They're constantly being renewed. And once these start renewing, will they have language in there now that can capture? If they don't come right out, say the Canada Disability Benefit, maybe they'll rewrite it to include a broader category that could include it if they wanted to. All right, folks, we've been about an hour. That's about how long I was hoping to go here. So I'm going to shut this thing down for now. Hope you learned a few things here. If you have more questions, just let us know. I'll be doing the live stream every day at 3 p.m. Eastern. You can show up there with questions about this Canada Disability Benefit or anything else. Tomorrow, we're back at 4 p.m. talking about how to contact a law firm, what the process is. And then we'll be back on Monday talking about CPP disability again. I wish you all a good night and take care.